What's up guys, and welcome to another Bojanian vlog. Hope you're well, and thanks for tuning in again. So today's entry is kind of something that came about through a thought I had today. Basically, yeah, sometimes like I say, I have a lot of ideas come through sometimes. And sometimes like a scenario drops in my head, where like perhaps I'm trying to imagine how I would explain like the ideas I have to someone, like especially the average person in society. And that's kind of usually how like these vlog entries come up, or like the ideas I have come up. But basically, I imagined a scenario that was relevant to what I did recently, right? And my kind of overall message I have on this channel. So, I think I did a vlog, I think it was 2 vlogs ago, where I talked about tapping into your sensitivity, which is my core teaching, as a bit of a kind of reprisal, and it kind of, and I discussed about, the importance of trusting your feelings, right? So, and how a lot of our problems kind of essentially boil down to not trusting your feelings, and that kind of thing. And how like, the way that you kind of approach this whole kind of journey thing that we're all on is to essentially tap back into your sensitivity, which is my core teaching. Of course, I understand that, like, again, I mentioned in that entry that it's not the be-all and end-all of life. It certainly isn't, like, the only kind of philosophy or life kind of mantra that people have, like, because, there are some people who are completely, like, so, in these entries I talk to whoever might be interested in this kind of thing, who are, the empaths, the healers, the light workers, the spiritual people, because that's essentially the kind of person I am, right? But like, if you go out there in the world, like, I don't have to say this, but like, there's people with like many differing perspectives and priorities and things like that, different natures, and they all exist, and but anyway, so this entry is going to be like a bit of an extension on that, as usual, and like, I feel that it's a very kind of interesting thought anyway, when I'm going to be presenting this video. So yeah, so okay, the thought that I had that kind of spurred this entry was, I was like, so I've been talking about like, and like every day I realize how important it is to trust your feelings as someone who wants to kind of live a heart-centered life, essentially, right? And like, someone might be like, oh, so how do you live a life that is aligned with happiness? Like, how do I stop my life from being shitty? Like, how do I unplug from the matrix or whatever it might be, right? And imagine this person's, asking you, and you understand that, like, essentially, well, you've got to pursue happiness. That's, that's essentially, the bottom line of it, right? And they might be like, okay, well, so how do I do that? And you're like, well, how about you try doing things that make you feel good? Because that's pretty much the first step, right? To do things that make you feel good. And they might be like, well, it's not that simple. That might be like their kind of retort that they give you. And you're like, well, what do you mean? And they'll be like, well, what if the thing that I enjoy doing also causes me pain? And then you say to them, well, if it makes you feel pain, don't do it. And like, and of course that will confuse them, and they'll be like, but like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, how can I, what can I do if like if I feel good, but then the thing is simultaneously bad for me? What the fuck can I do? And you're like, well, that's a sign that you're thinking too much about it, because what I'm talking about here is, getting in touch with your feelings. And to pursue a life of happiness, you must tap into the feeling of happiness, right? Which is what most people kind of have difficulty grasping. You know, I'm not saying it's easy, but and then, you know, and then they say okay, and you say, well, you know, yeah, you know. So what I'm saying is, if it feels good, keep doing it. If it doesn't feel good, stop doing it, right? And they'll say, okay, so what if I simultaneously feel good and bad? You know, like I have something, an addiction, you know, like I enjoy smoking, I enjoy gambling, you know, whatever it might be. It makes me feel good in the moment, but then it also makes me feel shit, you know? So what do I do? And you're like, well, that's the kind of trick of it, right? Because nothing, like you can't feel simultaneously good and bad. You know, you can feel good and then bad, or bad and then good. But the whole kind of, so like, you know, the kind of moral of this thought that I had would be like, you know, yeah, motherfucker, like you gotta kind of separate, you know, what feels good and what feels bad, right? And you have to kind of start to think about, you know, like how can I separate those things and kind of resolve the kind of problems I have in my life. So like, bear with me, because yeah, you know, the title of this entry, you know, the message of this is pretty simple, but like I literally had this thought, and like I just thought that I kind of left it a bit. If I'd have done this entry a bit earlier, then like I guess it would have been a bit more free flowing. Also, I'm incredibly tired. Like I've been this weekend's Black Friday, so like I've been working a lot. But like anyway, that's my kind of chiming over. So basically, yeah, the message of this entry is: if it feels good, keep doing it. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. You know, I guess like the kind of sentiment I had was like, you know, it's pretty fucking simple, motherfucker, you know, kind of a thing. Of course, like, in practice, it's a bit more challenging. It's a bit more involved than that, you know. And I am in this entry reminding myself of this and teaching myself to kind of be more, to trust my feelings more, as much as I am, you know, informing anyone who might be watching this. So yeah, you know, like, that's pretty much it. You know, if you think about kind of like just your day-to-day life and the decisions you make, and you know, just like you can go as minute as you want or as long-term as you want, right? It really just boils down to like, are you making decisions and connecting with your you know, with yourself in such a way that kind of lends to a life of happiness, right? You know, it's like I address in many issues, you know, the problem of addiction. And, you know, the thing about addiction is it is the very thing that, you know, people can't seem to get over, because they think that it's, well, they focus obviously on like the kind of bad that it does for them and the people in their lives, but obviously like it's something that they enjoy doing, right? And so, you know, this is the kind of thing of like, what if I love doing it, but it also fucks my life up and like makes the people around me hate me, you know? And you know, that's a, you know, addictions are kind of, you know, the kind of tricky part of this, right? But like, we don't like, let's not necessarily even go there, you know. Of course, what, you know, the perspective I'm offering in this is that like, if you, and I've mentioned this in previous entries, right? You know, if you have an addiction that you're trying to kind of rectify, if you could say, or if you have some kind of bad habit that you're trying to rectify and replace with good habits, then like, you know, the approach that, you know, I offer essentially is that like, you think about what you actually enjoy about the activity, and you have to kind of, you know, you have to acknowledge it, right? Because like the thing about addictions and bad habits is that like we're so kind of torn that we don't even have the capacity to think clearly and to sit with like and separate these two things, right? Because we're like, this thing has so much power over my life that like, it doesn't matter what I do, it's impossible, it's pointless. But like you kind of have to get out of that kind of thinking and get into a mindset of like, no, okay, so what do I enjoy about this, and what damages me from doing this, right? And of course, the reason I say like let's not even go there, as well, is because the best way to kind of break an addictive pattern or a bad habit is to kind of start with things that aren't the addiction, so like start with like things you enjoy that don't cause dysfunction in your life, and then eventually you gain in willpower, and you gain in kind of confidence and health, such that you can then be more objective about things, right? When you're kind of faced with an addiction and it's ruling your life, then like you can't exactly like get to that mindset, because like you're just too drained, your face is too close to the curb. So you have to kind of slowly fish yourself out there, which is why I say, again, I made an entry about like do what you love, right? And another one called, or rather entitled, trust the feeling of love and not the promise of love. And really what this entry, what those entries, what most of the entries I do are designed to kind of do, I don't know if like just, preaching into a camera is probably the best thing in terms of like helping people with this, but like, the principle, let's just say, behind all of these perspectives that I offer is to trust your feelings more than abstract ideas, basically. Because like, you can say you should do this, activity, you should eat healthy, you should do exercise, you should do whatever, whatever like kind of goal that you set for yourself. But like, but really, the thing with that is that it forces you to be more cerebral, when you're trying to hold yourself to like an expectation, like a specific action or a specific identity, and you're trying to hold yourself to that, it makes you more cerebral and less sensitive, right? Because the thing about sensitive, like the thing about like experience and like the way that our energy moves, the way that our rhythms are, like it can be unpredictable, in the same way that like you roll a ball, like it isn't exactly like, even if you apply like you get a machine, right, and you push it with like an exact amount of force every time, unless you're in a very controlled environment, like it's going to move differently every single time. And the same is true of our feelings, and our feelings are, it is like the direct thing that is linked to our experience, right? So people like to think, I guess, and like, or at least like the way that I sometimes think about it is like people think that they can directly influence their behavior, like, and bypass their feelings altogether. But like, it doesn't work like that. You have like, your sensation, like, the way that you move in the world, right? Because your body is pretty much your vessel, without your body, you'd be dead, right? And like feelings comes after that, because feelings is a direct kind of mirroring of like the state of your body, your vessel, right? And then comes your analytical thinking, right? So again, I offer this as a perspective. I mentioned this in my entry about, when I reprised about the tapping into sensitivity like two vlog entries ago, is that like you can make the argument that that what I'm saying is is irrational and wrong, or whatever it might be. Heart-centered living may not be for everyone. Of course, like I'm making this entry primarily for those who want to live a heart-centered life, right? So this is kind of just like a little disclaimer for someone who comes along who might disagree. But like, I'm speaking, on the basis of, from the kind of perspective of someone who wants to live a heart-centered life, right? If you want to live a life that's completely cerebral and based on ideas and technology and science, go for it. If that's your kind of nature, as it were, if you're not a healer or or like a light worker, a tree hugger. If you're not if you're not that kind of a person, then like fair enough, you don't have to listen to what I'm saying. But like, if you want to live a heart-centered life, then like this is the trap that we have to watch out for. So like, when we hold ourselves to standards and ideas and identities, then like it they can be helpful, they can serve as guideposts. But like, if we hold ourselves too strongly to those things, it can take us away from what we from our feeling, from our sensitivity, from our rhythm, right? So like, the message in this entry really is, and in general, kind of like my message is, when there's a face-off between something you should do, or an identity that you should uphold, or like an activity that you should do, right, versus how you're feeling, then trust your feelings as a priority, right? Of course, like, this is the thing, because like, even as someone who is heart-centered, right, like that, obviously, like, sometimes you need to be sensible, sometimes you have to be a bit analytical, you have to kind of weigh things up, logically, but like, if you're ever stuck, and you're not sure and you feel crappy, then I would say, that tap into your sensitivity is a good option. Or rather is what you should do. And this entry is kind of weird. Like I guess like I'm just tired and like I'm not really feeling it right now. But I hope the message is clear anyway. So yeah, very simple message. If it feels good, do more of it. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it. And if it's something that seems to be a mix of the two, do it until it feels bad. Or like, if you do it and it feels good and then it feels bad, right? Then make a mental note of it, and and maybe think of something different you could do, or still do it but do less of it. Like, nothing is ever absolute, right? And we kind of get into trouble when we're like, oh my god, junk food is so bad for me, I'm never going to eat it ever again. Like, nothing is ever absolute, like, and that's part of the whole kind of consulting your feelings and tapping to your sensitivity thing, right? So, and the more that you kind of, just check in on your feelings and like what you feel about things, the more kind of precise it becomes. Like, the more kind of the fuller the feeling is, right? So, for example, like, I don't know if I have it on me, I think it's over there. I have like a fruit loaf, right, that I was just eating, right? And fruit loaf is basically just processed junk. Like, it like there's foods that are probably a lot worse than it, but like, it's bread, it's processed wheat. It's got raisins in it, which is basically just like processed and dried sugar, not exactly healthy for you, right? Over something like a stalk of celery or something, right? But like, I eat it, it tastes good. I'm not gonna lie, it tastes good, right? It's sugary. But then like, I notice afterwards that once I, like maybe like a few minutes after I've eaten it, my mouth feels like there's this weird like taste that isn't very pleasant. And like, I'm using the example of food here, but like, for example, if you eat junk food, you know, then like it tastes really good, in the moment. If anything, like, your body like craves it, right? It's like it's anticipating the taste, right? And you taste it, and it does taste fucking amazing. But then like notice the way it makes you feel afterwards, right? So in that scenario, like obviously, like at the end of the day, you have to kind of like think about like how you're going to live your life, and I for one am not going to spend the rest of my life just like eating junk food. But like the thing is, like, because I want to be healthier, I want to be healthier, I don't want like, like junk food like aging me faster and making me feel crappy and like making me like less able to think clearly. But like, I'm going to listen to my body, right? If it's telling me to eat junk food, then I'll eat junk food, like, AKA I have no resistance towards it, like if I had, you know, if I had a desire to drink alcohol, I'd drink alcohol. If I had a desire to smoke cigarettes, I'd smoke cigarettes, right? But like, I'm not like, I don't have a desire to smoke cigarettes, and like I generally don't like drinking alcohol, occasionally, like very, very occasionally, but I don't like the taste of alcohol, and I don't need that stuff, But like, if your body is really asking you for something, then like go for it, right? And and then like, and it's this process of like, like kind of making, and this is the thing, right? Like anyone who is kind of, who is dedicated to bettering themselves, there are many labels you could give it, right? They, they're like looking to, it's a balance basically, like it's essentially a balance, right? And tapping into your sensitivity, like, consulting your feelings could be kind of viewed as another kind of way of saying that, is like achieving balance, right? Because, again, this reality is predicated on like contrast, and sometimes and often conflicting viewpoints and conflicting stances and conflicting like decisions, right? Like, well, should I eat healthy and feel better but like not taste so good, or should I eat junk food which tastes amazing but makes me feel shitty, right? Which one should I do? And it's tempting to like be like, no, I'm going to never eat junk food ever again, or like, I can't be bothered to eat healthy food, and be like black and white about it, right? But like, the reality is that like you're living life, and every second, every minute, every second, every millisecond, you are changing. Your body is changing. Your needs change. The way you think changes. What you focus on changes. And there's just so much complexity to life, right? And the trap with being overly cerebral, even if it's like coming from, a very kind of heart-centered place, like, I want to eat healthy food because I want to be healthy, or like, I want to fill my life with like pleasant experiences that aren't fearful and like dangerous, like you're never going to achieve like, that nirvana that like you think is going to happen. And so like, like you try your best, we're all here to try our best, I have goals, again, like I want to eat healthy, I want to fill my life with like positive experiences and less negative ones, I want to contribute towards world peace. I want to do all of these things, but like at the same time, I know that like that's only half of the story, And if I get too attached to the idea of those things, like, that's when you get into suppression, you get into like insensitivity, and that's what causes problems, right? It's a very grey world we live in. But like, anyway, yeah, anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up here. Like, yeah, essentially, I guess essentially, like, I kind of strayed a bit from the original point, but like, yeah, if it feels good, do more of it. If it doesn't feel good, don't do it, like, or do less of it. That's at least one thing that you can kind of think in terms of, I have control over this, right? Yeah, because the problem is that like, a lot of people like, they get hung up over like, yeah, like I called it like fighting against ghosts or being jaded as fuck, in my previous entries, like people are so focused on negativity because it's like, they just cannot detach from the whole negativity thing, they cannot step away from suffering or pain, you know, and that's very dangerous, like, because it consumes you, like even if you're, even if you have like somewhat sound intentions as you think, right, like you're like, oh no, I just, it's just me, the world is not such a good place, like I'm just keeping an eye out for that, or like, you know, I don't know, whatever it might be, just because it's not, this is not logical. This is not a logical thing. This is more of an emotional thing, and it's not, it's something that, it's difficult to talk about. But if you're sensitive to this kind of thing, then like it's pretty much, it's night and day basically. You know when someone is overly fixated on negativity, when someone is overly fixated on positivity, right? So you have two sides of this. You have like, you have the people who I deal with on a daily basis, almost like nowadays, in my well, so far anyway. It's gonna change soon. Who are like, like they're all about money and like, and like how the government's fucked up and like, and they're like really realistic and practical. Like they're just really like practical. Realistic. None of this airy fairy stuff. It's all about power and money and like, and who's in power, and what, and who's got what, and who knows who, and it's a very, and business and stuff like that. It's like, it's very like, very kind of like, savage, but then you have like the people who like might be watching these videos. Yeah, I don't mean to offend anyone, but like, people who are like, like focus positively and everything will be, like, like don't feed negativity because you will attract more of it. And it's like that at the same time is also a fallacy, like you can't really turn a blind eye to like the kind of harshness of the world. But what I am advocating, what I am trying to espouse is like to have a goal, to have, a dream, to have a vision. My vision is very positive. I envisage a world that is, everyone gets along, everyone is happy, everyone is fulfilled. We live in a loving community, and that kind of thing. Very positive. That's my vision and goal for myself, right? But like at the same time, like I also acknowledge that the world is harsh. That like, sometimes like there is some shit that you will see, right? And even though it's scary, and even though it is scary, scary and brutal and like upsetting a lot of the times, like it can, I guess in a slightly like, in a slightly kind of morbid and twisted way, like, once you master this kind of, or once you kind of make peace with the fact that the world is a bit fucked up, like at times, and human nature is a bit fucked up at times, like, and you kind of forgive that side of you and other people, ish, and also just accept it, like you also, it's quite liberating, and sometimes it's quite exciting. Because like, a world that's too good might be a bit boring as well, which is just like another kind of a thing, Anyway, bit of a long kind of outro, but like, yeah, so in summary, yeah, if you want to live a life that is, geared towards happiness and alignment, then do what you love. Do what makes you, do what feels good. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how people see you, how you see you, just do it. If it feels good, do it, right? But then, if it doesn't feel good, don't do it, right? And this, this takes honesty, and it takes a bit of kind of challenging your mental paradigms. But like, you know, the more that you do this, the more that you will actually tap into your sensitivity, and the more that, you know, you will get in touch with your feelings, right? You know, and what is right for you. So cool. That's my entry. I hope it was I hope it was insightful. Like today, I guess I'm not feeling it as much, but like, oh well, we all have our off days, right? So cool. I hope you guys are having a great day, and if not, you're having not so great day. You know, it's cool. You know, use the opportunity to do some shadow work or something. Do something with it. Connect with your pain. You know, it's all good. You know, it's all good. So cool. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next entry. Peace out, guys. Hope you're having a great day. Bye.